It is 9:13. Welcome back. The pandemic has shined a light on the best and the worst of our relationships. At the core, relationship experts say being an effective communicator can help us avoid most of our conflicts. Joining us this morning is mental toughness expert and former U.S. Marine Eric Rittmeyer. Hi, Eric. Good morning. It is always good to see you. How are you this morning?
Danielle, thank you for having me back. I matched Ryan today. I'm supposed to be in studio with you guys. I got to get back in there.
Typically you match me, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. We'll talk about that later. But let's talk about communication, because I always have prided myself, I think, especially in my personal relationships, as being a pretty good communicator, right? But I think we could all use a little help brushing up on our communication skills right now, especially we spent 2 years not really talking to a whole lot of people, right? So what's the key to starting a conversation with our partner about maybe how we're feeling about certain things?
I think the most important thing, Danielle, is understanding that we're emotional creatures. We're hardwired to feel first and think later. It all starts with allowing ourselves to feel. Every single feeling we have, 100% of our feelings are okay. It's how we respond to those feelings that's so important. So don't try to turn it off. Don't try to stop it. Don't try to ignore it. Learn to acknowledge it, then control it so you can have healthier relationships.
I think what happens, though, Eric, and I understand what you're saying there, but if you are, let's say, an introvert, right, or if you're somebody who doesn't like confrontation, that might prove to be a little bit difficult. And so if you do fit those categories, how do you express your feelings without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think this part starts with labeling our feelings. I call this a feelings vocabulary or an emotional vocabulary. When we feel a certain way, happy, sad, angry, anxious, nervous, whatever, get to the core of what's causing that emotion, understand it, label it, so we have these experiences moving forward, we can go back to that database of feelings and say, this is what's happening, this is what's triggered this feeling, this is how I should handle it so I don't say something or do something that's going to ruin a relationship.
All right, so let's say you tell your partner that, right? How do we then avoid the defensiveness that perhaps your partner might feel when you tell them how you feel? I think immediately we want to get defensive. That's not me, or that's not how I'm reacting to this. What's the best course of action in that regard?
Yeah, here's the key with this, right?
Yeah.
So we're all entitled to our own emotional responses to situations, no matter how ill-calibrated we might think someone else's response is. So when something happens to us, the knee-jerk thing is to react. This is emotion-based. We fly off the handle, as opposed to responding, which is when we process information and then we formulate a response logically. So when it comes to our partners, we have to recognize that, assuming we're in a healthy relationship, our partners care about us. Our feelings are important. Explain to them how we feel, then move forward.
Do you feel men and women communicate differently?
100%. Men can't communicate, Danielle. We don't do it. We're not good at this, right? We're just horrible.
Listen, I didn't want to say that. I was going to leave that to you. But why is that? Because I think as a woman, I tend to be more communicative and say, hey, listen, this is how I'm feeling, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. And I think men tend to want to be more problem solvers in a different way, right?
So my hypothesis here is that men and women both feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
It's whether or not we're comfortable with expressing that feeling. Men are very emotional. We all are emotional. The key is society has taught us that we can't show those emotions all the time, because the minute we do, we're weak, we're vulnerable. But I don't think men or women feel any more or less than the other. It's all about how they articulate those feelings.
Do you feel that's changing, though, in terms of society with men now? It seems it's becoming more acceptable to seek therapy. It's becoming more acceptable to be open about your feelings as a man. And so do you feel that that is changing now, how men do communicate with women?
I totally believe it is, and I think we have to do a much better job with our children as well. They have to start to recognize that everything they're feeling is okay. Don't be ashamed of it. Let our kids know that their feelings are real. We understand their feelings. We can relate to their feelings. Kids at young ages don't have 30 or 40 years of experiences where we're able to properly address those emotions. Let them know the feelings are real. Let them know that we understand it. Give them healthy ways to show those feelings so they're not going to put themselves in bad situations.
And we have to wrap, but the way you show that as parents is by example. And I think that's probably the best way to do that. Eric Rittmeyer, I could talk to you about this forever. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
You're the best, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. Ryan.
Great to see you, Eric, for sure. Daniel, thanks. Well, it's important to check on people that are 65 and